Have you ever seen how one misunderstanding escalates into something much larger than it ever ought to be? It began as any other uneventful Tuesday morning in the Fairmont Business Center of Arlington, Virginia, a spot where nothing exciting ever actually occurs. Neutral colors, plastic plants, lifeless furniture, and the sort of quiet that makes even the softest whisper sound loud. But today, the quiet was shattered, and whatever happened after that changed everything. At 10:15 a.m., Julian McCall strode through the glass doors with intent. He wasn't boisterous. He wasn't belligerent. He just moved as if he had every right to be there. Wearing dark jeans and a pressed shirt, a laptop bag slung over his shoulder, Julian resembled any other professional walking to a meeting. He offered a polite nod to the security guard behind the desk. It wasn't returned. What followed wasn't about the way Julian appeared, but the way someone perceived him. Julian leaned against the wall, absent-mindedly scrolling through his phone, talking softly into a Bluetooth earpiece. At the reception desk, Tara Bledsoe, fresh into the job and wanting to make a good impression, spotted him. Something in the way he leaned, the soft way he talked to no one in view. She elbowed her colleague. "Do you recognize that guy?" A shrug was the response she received, but Tara's intuition wouldn't drop it. Rather than calling to ask him if he needed assistance, she made a different type of call, the one that holds authority. Security at the building was called. The phrase "acting suspicious" was employed. That was enough. On the floor above, Julian's contact at Graybridge Analytics was late to a meeting, unaware of the events transpiring mere floors beneath. And on the floor below, two patrol officers were already arriving. The Arlington County PD had been alerted with a cryptic report. Male, late 30s, African-American, walking back and forth in the lobby, muttering to himself, maybe casing the joint. Nothing about a threat, nothing about a weapon, but suspicious meant there was a reason to send someone. Officers Travis Denham and Paulina Reyes were the ones sent out. Not novices, not yet veterans. Denham, intense and piercing. Reyes, more deliberate and reflective. They entered the building ready for anything, but perhaps not the truth. Julian remained where he'd been, still cool, still oblivious. On his phone, going over papers, he quietly spoke into his mic. Subject confirmed. Location secured. Waiting for contact. Then the doors swung open behind him. "Sir, can we talk to you for a minute?" Julian turned, somewhat surprised. "Sure. What's this about mine stepping away from the wall? Keep your hands visible." Julian hesitated, confused, not frightened. "I'm with the Bureau, just here for a scheduled meeting." "Bureau of what?" Denham asked, squinting. "FBI?" "Yes," Julian replied, steady and calm. "Let me grab my ID." But the moment his hand moved toward his bag, everything changed. "Sir, don't reach." Time seemed to freeze. Julian stopped mid-motion. The room, already still, felt frozen in place. He had credentials. He had clearance. He had a right to be where he was. But still, he was treated as if he were a threat. "I just said I'm reaching for my credentials," Julian explained, stronger now but still contained. Officer Reyes intervened, sensing the tension. "Can you put the bag down and open it slowly?" Julian acquiesced without complaint. He knelt, unzipped the bag with caution, and said, "My badge is in the side pocket. You're welcome to remove it if you prefer." Denham didn't budge immediately. His jaw tightened, his mind computing. Within 7 minutes, an ordinary man on a normal mission had become professional to suspect. All because someone believed. He looked out of place. This wasn't about threats. It wasn't about danger. It was about perception. About how bias, no matter how latent, has the power to initiate a chain reaction with real-world effects. And what transpired in that lobby tells us more about us than about him. And sometimes the person who was silent as a mouse is the one who lit the fire. Julian sat immobile on the cold tile floor, hands in sight, laptop bag unopened at his side. His voice calm, his eyes unwavering. "I'm here to see someone from Graybridge Analytics. Surveillance request. If you require verification, call Agent Jennifer Rhodes at the FBI field office in D.C. But nobody reached for a phone. Nobody called. Not yet. Tara was frozen behind the reception desk, arms crossed now tightly, not out of conviction, but unease. She didn't justify her call. She didn't explain the chain of events she had initiated. She just watched. "Sir, sit down. Flat hands," Officer Denham instructed, his voice stronger this time. Julian sat slowly, gaze focused on the officer. Not in rebellion, but in careful command. Upstairs, the elevator finally roared to life. Someone was descending, and they were going to change everything. Down in the lobby, time expanded. Julian measured the tension with accuracy, where the officer's hands hovered, their pacing, the absence of words. He was trained for this, but not as the suspect. A few feet away from him, Tara's eyes darted between Julian and the ground, not knowing what she had been hoping for when she called security. Certainly not this. Her expression crimped, lips pursed, but still, she remained silent. "Are you carrying, sir?" Denham queried, never taking her eyes off Julian. Julian answered calmly. "Yes, Bureau-issued Glock 19. Concealed, right hip. Fully authorized. Credentials inside pocket of the bag. No furtive movements, no warning note. Only facts. Calibrated. Regulated. As if his freedom hung on each syllable. Because it could." Denham didn't budge. He didn't even glance at the ID. He just sat there, as if he could see guilt etched on faces where no guilt existed. Officer Reyes took one step forward, gingerly. Julian directed her. "Left zip pocket, silver badge case, photo ID within. Names Special Agent Julian McCall, badge number 79261. She knelt, unzipped the pocket, and took out the case. Within, badge photo, federal credentials, immaculate, official, unambiguous. She glanced at Julian, then Denham. "It's legit," she said, her tone low but firm. Legitimacy, however, wasn't sufficient. "Not yet. We still require confirmation," Denham grumbled, as if the truth in his hands couldn't take precedence over the narrative already forming in his head. Julian didn't dispute. "Call the Field Ops Center in D.C. or contact Agent Jennifer Rhodes. She'll confirm in seconds." His voice remained steady, but it was a strategic calm, one that protects you when reason alone won't be enough. The room should have begun to relax, but it didn't. Denham appeared frozen, stuck between doubt and pride, unable to take back a moment that had already gone too far. The kind of stance that says, "If I let my guard down, I lose something greater than control." Then the front doors opened again. 2 security guards of the building entered, one new, one old. Neither was talkative. They just hesitated, their eyes taking it in. A federal agent on the ground, 2 officers standing tall, a receptionist quietly unfolding within. One of the guards moved up to Reyes, mumbled something in her ear. She nodded. Julian eased just fractionally. His patience hadn't expired, but time was gaining ground. "I'm not being stubborn," Julian replied, voice firm, demeanor relaxed. "But I'm not a threat. I'm just here to get the job done. I won't budge unless you tell me to." Officer Reyes straightened, badge case still clutched in her hand. Her gaze shifted to Denham. "We need to call this in." But Denham didn't move. His gaze remained fixed on Julian, not suspicious now, but apprehensive. It was obvious he no longer perceived danger, but he didn't appear to know how to take it back either. 5 minutes had passed. It felt like 30. Then a gentle ding cut through the static. The elevator behind them opened, and with it came someone who didn't require clarification. Out stepped Agent Jennifer Rhodes. She stood as razor-tight as ever in a perfectly fitted navy pantsuit. Auburn hair shoulder-length, neatly pinned back behind one ear. Her badge, clipped to the hip, one leather notebook slung in hand, the other holding coffee. It was like she was walking to a covert briefing, not into a confrontation. The instant she caught sight of Julian, the way he was sitting on the hard floor tile, the way he was framed by 2 men in uniforms, she came up short. Her voice snapped the air apart like glass shattering. "Whatever is going on here? What is the story?" Everybody turned. Julian didn't even blink. "Good morning, Jennifer." She stepped forward, not hurrying, but not delaying a moment either. "Why is my chief investigator sitting on the floor of a lobby, as if he's a criminal officer?" Denham had finally found her voice. "Ma'am, we received a call about a suspicious person." "We were merely this man?" She cut in, her words slicing the sentence in half. "This man is Special Agent Julian McCall. He's here on official FBI business. You're holding his badge in your hand. So let me ask again. Why the hell is he on the floor?" Reyes interrupted, relaxed but guarded. We were told he was behaving erratically. Security in the building asked us to investigate. He admitted to being armed, so we proceeded according to protocol. Jennifer's tone did not rise, but it hardened. Did he struggle? No. Did he threaten anyone? No. She glared directly at Denham, eyes blazing. So, a black man sits alone in a lobby with a Bluetooth in his ear, and the first assumption is, he's dangerous. That what we're doing here now? There was silence. Julian got up slowly, dusting off his jeans. 7 minutes, he said softly. That's how long I sat there while they gawked like I was going to blow up the building. Jennifer's jaw clenched. She nodded toward him. You're clear. Go. Then she turned to Reyes and retrieved a business card from her portfolio. If either of you need verification, my direct number's right here. But let me save you the trouble. He's been with the Bureau 12 years. I've worked with him 6. And if you checked his record, you'd see more commendations than most agents receive in their careers. Reyes accepted the card. Denham did not. That was when Tara, the receptionist, finally came forward, her voice hesitant, brittle. I just wasn't sure. I didn't want to take any risks. Julian turned to regard her for a moment. Not angry, just tired. You know what's ironic, he stated calmly. I was standing directly next to the office directory. You could have simply asked me my name. Tara's lips opened slightly for an instant, as if she wanted to speak, then closed once more. She didn't say a word, but Jennifer wasn't done yet, and what she said next cut deeper than anything yet. She moved towards the officers again, tone controlled but sharpened with steel. Before I even entered this building, she said, Agent McCall was reading a personnel file. An officer had submitted an application for transfer to the Behavioral Analysis Unit. She paused. The file was still open on his phone top floor. The doors closed softly behind them, cutting off the lobby like the close of a scene in a play that had meant more than any script ever could. Within the elevator, there was silence for a long moment. Then Jennifer breathed out and looked at Julian. You did that better than most people would have. Julian didn't answer right away. He stared ahead, the tension finally beginning to ease from his shoulders. I've had practice. The elevator hummed upward. Downstairs, Denham hadn't budged. Neither had Reyes. The badge case remained clutched in her hand, warm from the instant she'd held it like evidence rather than truth. Denham finally sat on the edge of one of the lobby chairs, elbows on his knees. The shock of what had just gone down catching up to him like a storm that he hadn't been expecting. And Tara, she never so much as looked up. She just slowly laid her phone face down on the desk, like perhaps if she didn't glance at it, she wouldn't have to confront what it initiated. Up above, the doors of the elevator slid open. Julian emerged out beside Jennifer into a glass-enclosed modern conference suite. A figure in a finely tailored charcoal suit, the Gray Bridge. Executive, awaited, looking very much puzzled as to what sort of storm had just traveled beneath him. Jennifer nodded once. We're good. Julian strode over to the head of the table, dropped his bag and opened it with hygienic, practiced motions. He looked at the room, then at Jennifer. You ready? He asked. She gave a half smile. I've been ready since they put you on this case. Julian nodded once and tapped the keyboard to awaken his laptop. When the screen glowed with classified documents and digital evidence maps, his stance shifted, not tense any longer but intent. This was his turf now, and downstairs the quiet left behind would reverberate long after the agents had left. Was the kind of cop who did the right thing. Fair, sharp, measured. But standing in that lobby, I didn't feel like any of that. His voice wasn't defensive now, just honest. Julian studied him carefully. You didn't draw your weapon. That counts for something. Denham gave a humorless half laugh. Felt like I did, not physically, but everything about the way I stood, the way I talked to you, it might as well have been drawn. Julian nodded slowly. You were afraid of being wrong. That fear made you dangerous, even if you didn't mean it to. Denham looked down. I didn't expect to see myself that way. Not ever. None of us do, Julian said. The first time you see your own bias clearly, it feels like swallowing glass. But that's where the work starts. Denham finally looked at him. You said the interview's still on. Julian nodded. It is. But next time, you won't be walking into a room with a blank slate. You'll be walking in as the guy who made a choice in a lobby when it mattered. What you do with that? That's what we'll remember. Denham looked like he might speak again, but didn't. He just extended his hand. Julian looked at it for a moment, then shook it. It wasn't forgiveness. It wasn't forgetting. But it was something. As Julian turned and walked toward Jennifer's car, Denham stood beside the cruiser, watching him go, not with shame, but with the weight of new awareness, the kind that didn't fade when the uniform came off. Behind him, Reyes had stepped outside, watching them both. She didn't say anything, didn't interrupt. She just stood in the soft gray light of the afternoon, bearing witness. And for once, that was enough. I knew what it was to wear this badge, to serve, to guard. I believed I was clear, but I wasn't. Not truly. Julian remained silent, allowing the quiet to work its way, expand, become, encourage truth. I saw you and perceived danger, Denham went on. Did not matter what you said, did not matter how steady you were. I saw what I wanted to see, and that desire could have destroyed someone. Julian's eyes did not waver. It nearly did. Denham's jaw clenched, his eyes scanning the horizon. I can't take it back, can't make it not happen. No, Julian concurred, but you can choose what happens next. That's the only thing that belongs to you now. A breath of wind blew through the lot, catching at their clothes, the sort of soft punctuation that hits harder than a yell. Denham finally turned completely around to regard Julian. If I occupy that interview seat, I won't lie. I won't spin it. I'll report what occurred. I'll say what I took away. I owe you that. I owe it to the work. Julian regarded him for a really long time, his shoulders dropping the tension that had been clenched there so tightly. Then you've got a shot. They stood there a few seconds longer. No big reconciliation, no dramatic handshake, just something real, earned, fragile. But there. Julian turned to head towards Jennifer's car, his stride even. Denham didn't follow. He didn't have to. When Julian reached the car, he looked back one final time. Denham was still standing where he had been, but he was different now. Not because his uniform was different, but because perhaps, finally, he had. Julian got into the driver's seat, turned on the engine, and moved out slowly, the view behind him dwindling in the rear view. The way ahead wasn't clear, but it was unobstructed.